Muhammad Ali pushed open the heavy oak door of Le Château restaurant in Beverly Hills, and the first thing that hit him was the smell. Expensive wine, fresh bread, herbs he couldn't name. The second thing was the atmosphere. Crystal chandeliers casting warm light over white tablecloths. Quiet conversations punctuated by the clink of fine silverware. An elegance so deliberate it felt like a performance. It was October 1972, and Ali was 30 years old, just 3 weeks removed from a decisive victory over Floyd Patterson. He was celebrating tonight. Not the fight itself, but a business deal he'd just signed, a new endorsement that would set him up financially. His lawyer had recommended Le Château, calling it the place to be seen in Beverly Hills. Ali had made a reservation under his name 2 weeks ago. He was wearing a tailored charcoal suit, a crisp white shirt, a burgundy tie. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. He looked, by any objective measure, like he belonged in this restaurant, like he belonged anywhere he chose to be. But the man behind the host stand, mid-50s, silver hair, the kind of posture that suggested European breeding, looked at Ali and saw something different. Before we continue with the story, you can support us by subscribing to the channel and liking the video. Don't forget to write in the comments where you're watching from and how old you are. Let's continue. Excusez-moi, the man said, his French accent thick, practiced. The kitchen entrance is around back. Through the alley. Ali stopped. I'm sorry. The kitchen, the man repeated more slowly, as if Ali hadn't understood. The delivery entrance. It's in the back of the building. You cannot come through the front. There was a moment, a strange, suspended moment, where Ali tried to process what was happening. He looked down at his suit, looked at the host stand, where a leather-bound reservation book lay open, looked back at the man, who was already gesturing toward the door, clearly expecting Ali to turn around and leave. I have a reservation, Ali said carefully. The man's expression didn't change. I don't think you understand. This is a very exclusive establishment. We don't. He paused, choosing his words. We serve a particular clientele. The kitchen staff entrance is. I'm not kitchen staff, Ali interrupted. My name is Muhammad Ali. I made a reservation 2 weeks ago. For 8 p.m. Party of 2. The man, his name tag read Charles Beaumont, maître, blinked. Then his expression shifted into something that looked like condescending amusement. Muhammad Ali. Of course. And I am Napoleon Bonaparte. I'm serious. Check your book. Sir, Beaumont said, his voice taking on that edge of impatience that service workers use when they think someone is wasting their time. I don't know what you're trying to accomplish here, but this is not amusing. This restaurant is for, he gestured vaguely at the dining room, for people who can afford our prices, for people who understand our standards. Not for, he didn't finish the sentence. Didn't have to. The meaning was clear in his pause, in his gesture toward the door, in his assumption that a black man in a suit couldn't possibly be a customer. Ali felt something familiar stirring in his chest. Not anger, not yet, but recognition. The understanding that no matter what he achieved, no matter how many fights he won, no matter how famous he became, there would always be people who looked at his skin before they looked at anything else. Check your reservation book, Ali said, his voice calm but carrying an edge now. The name is Muhammad Ali. 8 p.m. Party of 2. What Charles Beaumont didn't know. What he couldn't know as he stood there smugly dismissing this man in a perfect suit was that he'd just made the worst mistake of his professional life. That within 24 hours, his name would be synonymous with discrimination. That Le Château, which prided itself on exclusivity and discretion, was about to become infamous for all the wrong reasons. But in this moment, Beaumont just sighed, that theatrical sigh of someone dealing with an annoyance, and opened the reservation book. More to prove Ali wrong then, because he believed him. And then he saw it. Muhammad Ali. 8 p.m. Party of 2. His face went pale. Charles Beaumont stared at the reservation book like it had betrayed him. His finger traced the name, Muhammad Ali, written in his own handwriting from 2 weeks ago. He'd taken the reservation himself. Over the phone, a man with a distinctive voice asking for the best table in the house. And Beaumont had given it to him. Table 12. Corner spot. Best view of the room. Reserved for celebrities and executives and people who mattered. He looked up at Ali. really looked at him this time. Saw the quality of the suit, the expensive watch, the confident posture. Saw, finally, the face he'd seen in newspapers and on television. The heavyweight champion of the world, standing in his restaurant, after being told he belonged in the kitchen. Beaumont's mouth opened and closed. There has been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, Ollie repeated. His voice was quiet, but something in it made several nearby diners turn to look. That's what you call it when you assume a black man in a suit must be looking for the kitchen in trance. Sir, don't call me sir now. You didn't call me sir 30 seconds ago when you thought I was here to wash dishes. You told me to use the back entrance. You said I didn't understand your standards. You mocked me when I said my name. Beaumont's face was red now. I apologize. It was an honest mistake. If you'll just... An honest mistake? Ollie's voice rose slightly. Around them, the quiet restaurant conversations were stopping. Diners were setting down their forks, turning in their seats. What exactly did you mistake? My clothes? My reservation? Or just my skin color? Please, Mr. Ollie, keep your voice down. Why should I keep my voice down? So your other customers don't have to hear that you told the heavyweight champion of the world that he belongs in the kitchen? So they can keep eating their expensive meals without confronting the fact that this exclusive establishment judges people by their race before anything else. A woman at a nearby table stood up. She was in her 60s, dripping with jewelry, the kind of Beverly Hills wealth that was born, not earned. Excuse me, but there are people trying to dine here. If you're going to cause a scene, I'm going to cause a scene. Ollie turned to face her. I walked into a restaurant where I have a confirmed reservation, wearing a suit, and was told to use the kitchen entrance. And you think I'm a problem? The woman's companion, her husband, probably, put a hand on her arm. Martha, sit down. But he's disturbing. He's absolutely right, the man said. His voice carried authority, the kind that comes from courtrooms or boardrooms. Charles, is what he's saying true? Did you direct him to the kitchen in trance? Beaumont's jaw tightened. There was a momentary confusion about. Did you or didn't you? Silence. Then, yes. But I didn't realize. You didn't realize he was Muhammad Ali? Or you didn't realize that assuming a black man must be staff was wrong? The man stood up now. I'm James Morrison. I'm an attorney. I've been eating here for 5 years. And I'm telling you, Charles, what I just witnessed is discrimination. Clear, actionable discrimination. Beaumont looked around the dining room desperately. He needed to contain this. Needed to get Ollie to his table quietly, to smooth this over before more people got involved. Mr. Ollie, please. Your table is ready. If you'll just follow me. No, Ollie said. I'm not following you anywhere. Not until you explain to everyone in this restaurant what you did. Not until you acknowledge that you looked at me and saw kitchen staff instead of a customer. Not until you admit that this exclusive establishment you're so proud of is just a pretty word for segregation. The restaurant was completely silent now. Every diner watching, every server frozen in place. The only sound was the quiet jazz playing through hidden speakers, suddenly jarring in its cheerfulness. Ollie stood there, 6'3", powerful, refusing to move, refusing to let this moment pass quietly. And Charles Beaumont stood behind his host stand, trapped between his pride and his growing realization that this was spiraling beyond his control. I think, said a new voice, we all deserve an explanation. A man in his 40s had stood up from a table near the window. He had that Hollywood look, good hair, expensive casual clothes, the confidence of someone used to attention. I'm David Richardson. I produce films. I've spent probably $50,000 in this restaurant over the past 3 years. And I want to hear Charles explain what happened here. Beaumont's voice was strained. Mr. Richardson, I assure you this is just a misunderstanding that. Stop calling it a misunderstanding. James Morrison, the attorney, interrupted. A misunderstanding is bringing someone the wrong wine. What you did was profiling. You saw a black man and assumed he was staff. That's not a misunderstanding. That's prejudice. I didn't. Beaumont stopped because the truth was he'd seen Ollie and made an instant calculation based entirely on race. And now, with 40 diners watching, with the heavyweight champion of the world standing in his restaurant refusing to back down, There was no way to spin it that didn't make him look exactly like what he was. A woman at a center table, younger, maybe mid-30s, with an artist's look, spoke up. I've worked as a server. I know what it's like when customers assume you're less than human because of your job. But what you did, Charles, that's worse. You assumed he was staff because he's black. And when he tried to correct you, you mocked him. That's not an honest mistake. That's racism. How dare you? Beaumont started. How dare I? The woman stood up. How dare you? This man made a reservation. He showed up on time, dressed appropriately, ready to spend his money here. And you told him to use the back door. How dare you? But not everyone agreed. Another diner, a man in his 60s with a look of old Los Angeles money, shook his head. This is absurd. Charles made a mistake. He's apologized. Why are we turning this into some kind of circus? The man has his table. Let's all just move on. Move on. Ollie turned to face him. Move on like this doesn't matter? Like being told I belong in the kitchen isn't worth discussing? Like the fact that in 1972, in Beverly Hills, a black man still can't walk into a fancy restaurant without being assumed to be the help. That's just something we should all ignore. I'm simply saying that making a scene about it isn't helping anyone. It's helping me, the female artist said. It's helping me see which restaurants I should never eat at again. Which is this one, by the way. Charles, I'm done here. Send my bill to my agent. She walked out. The Hollywood producer stood up. You know what? Same. I've ignored a lot of things about this place. The whispered comments about certain people, the way reservations mysteriously aren't available when the wrong names call. I told myself it was just Beverly Hills being Beverly Hills. But this, he looked at Ollie. Mr. Ollie, I'm sorry. You deserve better. We all deserve better. He walked out too, and suddenly other diners were standing, some to leave, some speak up, some just because they didn't know what else to do. The carefully controlled atmosphere of Le Château, the exclusivity, the discretion, the understanding that everyone here was part of the same world, was crumbling. Mohammed Ali looked around the dining room at the chaos his presence had created, at diners arguing with each other, at servers standing uncertainly, not sure whether to clear tables or bring food, at Charles Beaumont, pale and shaking, realizing that his momentary confusion had turned into a disaster. And Ali made a choice. He could leave, could take his reservation elsewhere, could let these people fight it out among themselves. Or he could do what he'd always done, use his platform, use his voice, use this moment to say something that needed to be said. Can I tell you all something? Ali's voice cut through the arguments. Everyone stopped, turned, listened, because even the people who disagreed with him knew who he was, knew that when Muhammad Ali spoke, it mattered. I came here tonight to celebrate. Ali began. I signed a business deal, a good one, the kind that means my family is set financially. And I wanted to celebrate somewhere nice, somewhere fancy, somewhere where I could feel like I'd made it. He gestured around the room. This place, Le Château, it's supposed to be the best. That's what everyone says. The best food, the best wine, the best atmosphere. Reserved for people who've achieved something, for people who matter. But when I walked through that door, you know what the man in charge saw? Not a businessman, not a champion, not someone who matters. He saw a black man. And his brain went straight to, that man must be here to work, must be kitchen staff, must belong in the back. Ali's voice was calm, but it carried. And I want everyone here to understand something. I'm Muhammad Ali. I'm famous. I'm rich. I've met presidents and kings. And still, I get told I belong in the kitchen. So imagine what it's like for every other black person who walks into places like this. Every doctor, every lawyer, every successful professional who gets looked at and automatically assumed to be staff, automatically assumed to be less than. He turned to Beaumont. You didn't make a mistake. You revealed something. You revealed that in your mind, in your gut, the idea of a black man being a customer here was so unlikely that you literally couldn't process it. Even when I was wearing a suit, even when I told you my name, you couldn't believe it. Mr. Ali, I truly apologize. Stop apologizing and start understanding. Ali cut him off. The problem isn't that you hurt my feelings. I've dealt with worse. The problem is that this place, this beautiful, expensive, exclusive restaurant, It doesn't actually judge people on their achievements or their money or their reservations. It judges them first on their skin, and everything else comes second. He looked around at the diners. And all of you who eat here regularly, who've spent thousands of dollars here, who think of this as your place, you're part of the problem too. Because you've been coming here, enjoying your meals, ignoring the fact that exclusive often means exclusionary. That standards often means we keep certain people out. Now hold on, the older wealthy man started. That's not fair. It's completely fair, James Morrison, the attorney, interrupted. I've been eating here for years. I've never seen a black family at dinner. Not once. I noticed it, thought it was odd, and then just stopped thinking about it. Because it was comfortable to stop thinking about it. The room was silent again, but it was a different silence now. Not shocked or angry. Thoughtful. Uncomfortable. The silence of people confronting truths they'd been avoiding. I'm not going to eat here tonight, Ollie said finally. I don't want to celebrate in a place that initially told me I belonged in the kitchen. But I want to thank everyone who spoke up, who refused to let this pass, who made it uncomfortable instead of easy. He looked at Beaumont one last time. And I want you to think about something. When you go home tonight, when you think about what happened here, ask yourself, how many other people have I judged before I even spoke to them? How many times have I let my assumptions override reality? Because that's the work. Not apologizing after you get caught, but examining the biases that made you do it in the first place. Ollie turned to leave. James Morrison stood. Mr. Ollie, may I buy you dinner somewhere else? Somewhere better. I like that, Ollie said. The female artist joined them. Can I come too? The more the merrier. The Hollywood producer stood. I know a place. Great food. And they judge people by their character, not their color. My treat. As they walked out together, an attorney, an artist, a producer, and the heavyweight champion of the world, other diners stood. Some to join them. Some to leave in different directions. Some to stay and finish their meals in uncomfortable silence. By the next morning, the story was everywhere. Muhammad Ali denied service at Beverly Hills restaurant. The details varied slightly in different tellings, but the core remained. Ali had made a reservation, showed up on time, and been told he belonged in the kitchen. Le Château's phone rang nonstop. Some calls were supportive, longtime customers saying Charles Beaumont had done nothing wrong, that Ali was being oversensitive, that restaurants had a right to maintain standards. But many more calls were angry. People canceling reservations, demanding refunds on prepaid events, saying they'd never eat there again. Charles Beaumont gave an interview trying to explain. It was a momentary confusion. The lighting by the door, his unexpected arrival, the stress of a busy evening. These things contributed to an unfortunate misidentification. I apologized immediately. But James Morrison, the attorney who'd been there, went on television with a different story. He didn't apologize immediately. He apologized after he realized who Ollie was. And even then, he tried to minimize it, to move past it quietly. It took Ollie refusing to let it pass for Beaumont to acknowledge what he'd done. The artist, whose name was Patricia Chun, wrote an op-ed in the Los Angeles Times titled "The Exclusivity We Pretend Not to See." In it, she detailed years of noticing Le Château's lack of diversity, of watching reservation requests from certain names be mysteriously unavailable, of hearing whispered conversations about maintaining the restaurant's atmosphere. The Hollywood producer, David Richardson, announced he was producing a documentary about discrimination in Los Angeles' high-end establishments. We think of Beverly Hills as liberal, as progressive, he said, but scratch the surface and you find the same prejudices, just dressed up in fancier language. Le Château tried to weather the storm. They implemented diversity training for staff. They issued statements about welcoming all guests. They even invited Ollie back for a complimentary dinner, which he declined. But the damage was done. Celebrities stopped eating there. Business lunches moved to other restaurants. The wealthy families who'd been regulars started finding other places to celebrate special occasions. Within 18 months, Le Château closed. The official reason given was changing tastes in Beverly Hills dining. Everyone knew the real reason. Charles Beaumont never managed another restaurant. He gave occasional bitter interviews about being destroyed by one mistake, about Ollie being vindictive, about political correctness ruining everything. He never, not once, acknowledged that his mistake revealed systematic bias, that his instant assumption about Ollie reflected years of similar assumptions, that his response when confronted showed his true character more than his initial error. What happened at Le Château became a case study in business schools and civil rights courses, not because it was the most dramatic confrontation, not because it involved violence or legal battles, but because it showed how discrimination persists in subtle forms, disguised as standards and exclusivity. Mohammed Ali never ate at Le Château again, even when it was under new management years later. But he did return to Beverly Hills restaurants. And when he did, he made a point of being visible, of bringing his family, of showing that fancy restaurants, exclusive spaces, elite establishments, they were for everyone who could afford them and chose to be there. James Morrison, the attorney, started a watchdog organization that documented discrimination in Los Angeles hospitality. They published annual reports on which establishments had diverse clientele and which didn't. They worked with the city to enforce anti-discrimination laws. They made it impossible to pretend the problem didn't exist. Patricia Chun, the artist, curated an exhibition called The Doors Were Not Allowed Through. It featured photographs and stories of Black professionals who'd been mistaken for staff, denied service, or made to feel unwelcome in spaces they had every right to occupy. And David Richardson's documentary, Reserved Seating, won an Emmy. It traced the history of segregation in American restaurants from Jim Crow laws to modern dress codes and membership requirements that achieved the same exclusionary results. But perhaps the most important legacy was what happened in other restaurants. Managers who heard the story and looked around their own dining rooms, noticing for the first time how homogeneous they were. Owners who examined their policies and realized they were designed to exclude. Maître d's who caught themselves making assumptions about customers and stopped, remembered Ollie, and chose differently. Change is slow. It's imperfect. It requires constant vigilance. But sometimes change starts with one man refusing to accept being told he belongs in the kitchen. Sometimes it starts with witnesses refusing to look away. Sometimes it starts with consequences, with restaurants closing, with reputations destroyed, with people being forced to confront their biases. Years later, in one of his final interviews before Parkinson's made speaking difficult, Muhammad Ali was asked about the Le Château incident. "People always want to talk about my fights," Ali said, his voice soft but clear. "Liston, Fraser, Foreman. Those were important. Those were historic. But you know what I remember just as much? Moments like Le Château. Moments where I had to fight for basic dignity. The man at that restaurant looked at me and saw kitchen staff. Even though I had a reservation, even though I was wearing a suit, he saw my skin before he saw anything else. And that's what I've been fighting my whole life. Not opponents in a ring, but the prejudice that says I don't belong in certain spaces." The interviewer asked if he regretted making a scene, if looking back he wished he'd handled it quietly. Ali smiled, that famous smile that had lit up television screens for decades. "Make a scene? I didn't make a scene. I revealed one. I revealed what was already there. The assumptions, the bias, the comfortable exclusion that people pretend doesn't exist. All I did was refuse to accept it quietly. And you know what? That's what we all need to do. When we see discrimination, when we experience it, when we witness it, we need to make it uncomfortable. We need to make it impossible to ignore. Because silence protects the people doing wrong. Speaking up protects everyone else." He paused, his hands shaking slightly with the disease that would eventually take his voice entirely. "I've spent my whole life being told where I don't belong. Restaurants, hotels, neighborhoods, even the boxing ring. There was always someone saying I didn't have the right. And every time, I had to prove them wrong. Not by asking permission, but by simply being there. By refusing to leave. By insisting that I belonged anywhere I chose to be." That night at Le Château, I taught that restaurant manager a lesson he should have already known. You can't judge people by their appearance. You can't assume someone's status by their skin. And if you run an establishment that claims to be exclusive, you better make sure you're excluding the right things, rudeness, disrespect, actual impropriety. Not just people who don't look like your usual customers. Muhammad Ali died in 2016. Thousands of people came to his funeral. Presidents and dignitaries and celebrities. But among the mourners were also regular people whose lives he'd touched in ways large and small, including a woman named Patricia Chun, who'd walked out of Le Château that night and never looked back. He taught me something important, she said at a memorial service. He taught me that witnessing isn't enough, that seeing discrimination and disapproving silently doesn't change anything. You have to speak up. You have to make it uncomfortable. You have to be willing to lose friendships and opportunities and comfort for the sake of what's right. That's what Muhammad Ali did every day of his life. He made it uncomfortable to be racist, uncomfortable to be prejudiced, uncomfortable to maintain systems that excluded people based on skin color. And because he made it uncomfortable, things changed. Not perfectly, not completely, but they changed. That's the legacy of what happened at Le Château. Not just that one restaurant closed, not just that one manager was exposed, but that countless other people, customers, servers, managers, owners, heard the story and made different choices, examined their assumptions, challenged their biases, insisted that exclusive didn't have to mean exclusionary. Muhammad Ali was the greatest boxer who ever lived. But that night in Beverly Hills, he showed that his most important fights happen outside the ring. In restaurants where he was told he belonged in the kitchen. In hotels where his children were denied access. In airports where his first-class ticket was questioned. Every time he fought, not with fists, but with dignity, conviction, and the absolute refusal to accept discrimination as normal. And every time, he won, not just for himself, but for everyone who came after him. Everyone who walked into a restaurant and was judged fairly. Everyone who was seen as a person before they were seen as a color. That's what it means to be the greatest. Not just in the ring, but in life. In moments when it would be easier to stay quiet. In spaces where speaking up costs something. In the choice to make discomfort productive rather than letting prejudice remain comfortable. Muhammad Ali made that choice at Le Château. And in making it, he changed more than one restaurant. He changed everyone who heard the story and decided to do better.